Okay, Andrew Boryga, who wrote Victim. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
for yeah, it's a pleasure. This has been such a um, you know, this has been an exciting Zoom for me, not just because I had to cancel it due to disaster so many times, but just because this book is such a fabulous find and I've really been enjoying your Substack. So yeah, let's get into this lovely conversation. For those of you meeting Andrew for the first time, I'm sure many of you aren't who are like avid Substackers. You've got like a really great presence on that platform. But for those of you just now meeting him, Mr. Boryga wrote this book with this cool cover. Um, he's an author who was born and raised in the Bronx, where this book is set in portion. Um, but you've called Miami home for a decade, switching to pronouns here. Your debut novel, which I was just holding, was published in 2024 and was a finalist for the Gotham Book Prize, selected as a New York Times Editor's Choice. I that's always a good boost. And named a Best Book of the Year by NPR, the BBC, Lit Hub, and other outlets. That's awesome. Your nonfiction has appeared in the New York Times, the New Yorker, and the Atlantic, among other publications. And you publish a monthly Substack, Dwell, which we'll talk more about too. It's focused on your experiences navigating the publishing industry. Very helpful. Um, so yes, this book is like I've been describing it to friends as like basically like millennial sellout slash erasure meets Sorry to Bother You. Without as many of the speculative elements, but it's a very I think it's like just a very well we'll talk in detail about this. I don't want to give too much away, but it's a to me like discursively, it's a very liberating read. It's like
Thank you.
people just need to read this thing. And I'm so thrilled. Yeah, no, I'm thank you for writing it, as I said, and I'm so thrilled to be kind of getting into a more fine-grained discussion about it. But before we do that, why don't you go ahead and read us a very short,
Yeah,
gripping two-page selection from this?
yeah. Well, thank you for the kind words. That's very nice what you're saying about the book. I appreciate it. And so I'm gonna read literally the first like 2 pages, 1.5 page of the novel. Um, I wasn't trying to play the victim until the world taught me what a powerful grift it is. Believe it or not, all I wanted was to be successful, to hustle like my pops, but keep my life and freedom in the process. My desperate chase after your approval was really all about that. I needed that approval to be considered successful. I needed it to feel like my life mattered. The truth is, I didn't create this racket. I was put on. I peeped game and realized I happened to be uniquely equipped to thrive in it. You see, there are many ways to go about it, but the absolute easiest starting point is to actually have had some tragic shit happen to you. It gives you something to pull from, a leg to stand on. I survived this. If you don't have that, but you have the right shade of skin, you'll be okay for now. If you have, if you don't have the tragic story or the right skin color, but you grew up in the right kind of place with the right kind of poverty and have the right kind of people to back up that story for you, you might be able to work something out. But if you don't have the tragic shit and you don't have the right skin color and you don't have the right geographic background, you're fucked. Get out of the game entirely. It is just not for you. Take your privilege, earn your cash, invest in your stocks, and for the love of God, stay off of social media. Lucky for me, I had the trifecta: the right skin color, the right birthplace, and the right tragedy to mind, thanks to my pops. There's a lot I could tell you about him, but that's a whole book in itself. For our purposes, the last days I spent with Pops before he died are enough.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to talk about Javi and his identity jackpot. As we
Good way to
get
put
into
it. I
these
like that.
questions. Yeah, I love that opening, and I really, really love, yeah, I love kind of how we get to know Javi over the course of this book. But let me dive in here. My first question. It's about basically it's about like the kind of political and media landscapes that you were writing this book in. So the book itself represents for me kind of like need to hold up higher like a holy union between two of my all-time favorite subgenres, the con story and the political satire.
Mm.
And I would really go so far as to describe this particular book as biting, and that it's exposing a lot of to like to my mind, and it seems to yours as well, pretty damning liberal pieties from within the inner sanctum of the book world, which is again why I would compare it with a lot of these like, really fantastic, to my mind, satirical works like the like the sellout. I love Paul Beatty's sellout, and Paul Beatty's like on here recommending your
He's the
book, which is
man. I
awesome.
mean, he's the GOAT. I mean, yeah. So,
He's so dude, he's so funny. He's so surrealist. He has a kind of like an Ishmael Reed bent as well. I just love the sellout.
sure.
And of course, Erasure, right? Of course, the
Yeah.
explosion of Percival Everett, and the everyone watch American Fiction if you haven't already. Long story short, right? Like this book is situated really, I think, like ideally, within this kind of like absurdist, caper cod kind of satirical subgenre realm. And I'm like, I read a little bit about like the process of your, writing this on your Substack. You said it
Mhm.
took you 10 years to write this.
Mhm.
And you were, also kind of like following a, certainly not in the same, like vein, but a similar career trajectory to Hobby. Like
Sure.
you're doing journalism, right? You were kind of like walking among worlds, in terms of just like college and home and all this stuff. And so you were also witnessing the rise and fall of DEI,
Yeah.
which, yeah, I'm sure both you and I have a lot to say about the rise and fall, of course, of Donald Trump, rise again, right? And just,
Yeah.
just Trump too. He comes back, but vengeance. But and then of course, the way media, the kind of like literary and media response, like to all of these, this tectonic shifts in our culture. Please, please tell us, Andrew, like what was that like? Like how was it informing your process, and how was it informing your
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I started playing with Javi, the protagonist, and Gio, who's his best friend in the novel. This also plays a prominent role in it. Way back when I was in Cornell, where I went to undergrad. So I was probably like, I don't know, sophomore, junior year. I started messing around with these characters. And at first, the idea for the novel was really about this friendship story between these two guys, and about their trajectory from the same neighborhood, same building in the Bronx, to very different paths in life, to one going off to a fancy college and one sort of staying behind, getting involved in drug dealing and ending up in prison, and then they've reunited in some way. That was sort of the basic sketch I had of the novel. And you can see that part is still in the novel in many ways. But as I was working on it, I also was pursuing a career in journalism. Mostly because I didn't really understand how you became a novelist. Like I didn't, that wasn't like a job that made sense to me. It sounded like a fake job. I was like, nobody has that job. Like, I grew up poor. I was like, I need to make money. I need to like pay my rent and shit. So I was like, journalism at the time, which now is laughable, but at the time, this is 2009, 10, 2013 or whatever, when I graduated, you could have a career in journalism. You can make a life. I mean, you still can, but it's a little harder now. And so I was pursuing that, and so I graduated undergrad. I had a very short stint in MFA program. I ended up leaving because it wasn't really working out for me at right away. I went too early, and I came back to New York, and I was just working in the media. So I worked as an assistant at the New York Times for a year, and then after that, I was just freelancing, and I would have like sort of day jobs in the nonprofit sector, and then do my freelance stuff on the side and try to just make this career. Eventually, ended up working in newsrooms at a couple staff positions. And so it was really interesting because in 2013, when I graduated, I feel like we're right on the cusp of this like diversity wave. And by 2014, 2015, the whole landscape of media had shifted where it was like, editors were reaching out to me. Yes, I'm talented, but also mostly it was pretty clear because I was, a person of color, because I'd grown up in poverty, because I had ties to the Bronx, because I had sort of cachet or ties to communities that they really wanted to supposedly spotlight and highlight, and so that's why I was like, great. In the beginning, I was like, great, this has been overdue, you know what I mean? Like about time. publishing media is way too white. Like let's yeah, let's do this, you know? And I was very happy and thrilled. But 2014, 2015, as I keep escalating in my career, 2018, 2019, I started to get pretty disillusioned because I realized that like these same people bringing me in and trying to open these doors for me, like it was a very conditional thing, right? Where it was like, we'll let you in here, but you only can write about like these topics, right? And you can only do the poverty porn, trauma beat sort of stuff, anytime I would try to step outside that lane and do something a little bit more discursive, something about like music or like history or like some random shit that I was into, I get shut down all the time, like over and over and over. And then at the same time, I'd look over in the arts page or the whatever pages of the places I was trying to write for, and those types of stories were there, but like from the white perspective, like, indie rock bands in Brooklyn or whatever. And like, but I was trying to write about these like rappers that like I was trying to write about like Bad Bunny, I remember like before he really blew up. So I was, I got family in Puerto Rico and they were like, yo, this guy's big. So I was hearing about him. Other like reggaeton movements. Arturo Schomburg was like this really important Puerto Rican historian. And it's just like nobody was like taking it, and then in addition to that, I would get these notes, or get these like, hear comments from editors and stuff like, oh, could you make this grittier? Or can you do, and I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, so it was like, so slowly, I started to realize like, okay, you're not really, it's not really about me. Like, I'm a trend, you're hopping on some trend
Yeah.
and I'm just the guy to ride the wave for you and get you those clicks. Right. And so that kind of pissed me off. And then I realized it was a national thing around 2019, 2020. You were mentioning Trump.
Mm.
I think the second time around, like I was a reporter at that point, and I was in Florida already, living in Miami, and like I'm meeting people of color, like minorities who think and act very differently than how they're being portrayed in these publications. How what
Mhm.
the concerns allegedly are. You would think that everyone, all people of color were just like all we think about is like cops or something. And a lot of us too, but also a lot of us were like my property taxes, like they're religious or they're whatever. Like they have all types of concerns that were just like not being addressed. Schools, all types of things, and so I was there watching. I'm like, oh, I knew he ended up losing, but I knew that like more people of color, I've seen them were moving toward becoming more conservative, like actually not like not identifying or believing in the way, thinking in the way that like the mainstream was like portraying people to seem. And more on top of that, I realized like they're pissed off that like you're just like broadly painting a brush like this is how brown and black people think, and they're like, no, like, like fuck you. So I realized like the same anxieties that I was like experiencing in the media was like an early harbinger in many ways, and then it started to play out on a national level. And so that's when I kind of was like, okay, this is something interesting. And so slowly the novel that I've been working on about these friends just kept evolving, kept evolving. And so I finally reached a point in 2020, 2021 where I was like, what if there's a guy, what if Javi, who I've been trying to figure out how to make him active and make him more interesting. I was like, what if he's, similar to me, but instead of in my real life, I started pulling back and not working in the media as much. And I had my son and then I had my daughter, and I was just like focusing on being a parent and stuff. And I was, just like, this is a weird thing I don't want to be engaged in. But I was like, what if there's a guy who leans into this shit? What if there's a guy who's like, I know that my identity is hot right now, and I'm just gonna sell this like it's a drug,
Yeah.
And so when I landed on that, I was like, oh, that's interesting, it's fun. And so like it took off after that. But it was informed by kind of all of those previous experiences that I had seen in the media, covering politics in Florida, just having conversations with friends of mine back home in the Bronx, family of mine, and just realizing like people were, we're it's great that we care about diversity. And I'm still off, I think it's important, but I think also like we can't flatten people just to fit into a box that we want them to fit into.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, when like one thinks, I think, like when one thinks of like Javi's arc, right, where he's just like, oh, like this is hot right now. Like I really could just like walk across the this
Mhm.
kind of like Cornell equivalent campus, right, and be like, this officer looked at me. And I
Yeah.
could, and then and then I could kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah, no,
extrapolate
no.
alphabet. It's like it's first of all, it's like pun intended here, like white hot, right? Because it's like everyone is talking about
Mhm.
diversity to correct a legitimate issue, right?
Right,
Which is
exactly.
now
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
The issues are
yeah,
real,
like
for
this
sure.
this is real. This is like unambiguously real,
Right.
and it's discourse around it is becoming, as discourse around everything tends to become, I think, like ultra like polarizing and atomizing. Everyone feels like alone in it, and like also like is trying to like commit to the right side. And then you have the even like more kind of like the lightning rod figure of Donald
Yeah.
Trump, where it's like how do people respond to Trump, right? How can we respond to Trump? And so what it's so interesting. Like your book made me think of the careers of someone like Ibram X Kendi, right? Who
Yeah.
is like and what a wild story there, where it's like you have this work of like real like scholarly like thoroughness and ambition and rigor like stamped from the beginning,
Mhm.
and then you see what happened with him and the like the Boston University situation where he's running this
Right.
like $4 million center for like investigating questions about race and like trying to like the Center for Racial Justice, I think it was called, and then like
Yeah.
Jack Dorsey's giving him millions of dollars, and it kind of blew up for him. And there's no mechanism. It felt
Mhm.
like there is no mechanism because like when I was at my most like, oh God, Donald Trump is here, we're
Right.
fucked, like everything's and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
like I was at my most kind of I felt like throttled like
Mhm.
discursively where I was just like feeling both this sense of fear from the Trump presidency and this sense of just like let's call a spade, right? Like
Mhm.
recognizing the truth of like what is going on in terms of lack of diversity and having this just sort of like flatlining of just like,
Right.
well, like I'm a piece of garbage because like I'm one of the white people benefiting from it,
Right.
and then yeah, there's that sort of like blobby mass of like guilt
Mhm.
and I would just describe it as just like almost like philosophical impotence. Like you just can't think through it. You're just like, oh, I'm garbage.
Right.
And then you become Nick. Well, Nick Ossoff is kind of a different case. I really want to get into
Yeah,
that
yeah,
brilliant scene with him. But like there that you have you have people who are then like, let me pay people of color these, to come to dinner and just
yeah.
fucking whip me
Extortion.
into
Yeah.
shape.
When I heard about this,
You know
it's fucking concept I've ever heard in my
what?
life, bro. Like,
Like
people will pay for
you
this shit. Like, holy
people
crap.
will pay. Well, and see, this is why this is getting into the question about victimhood, though, right? And
Right,
that's
right,
what your
right,
book
right.
does so brilliantly. Is it's just like this is a powerful tool, right? Claiming the victim is a powerful tool of
Yeah.
manipulation. And what was really happening with forgive me for sounding like I don't know, like some kind of like tedious commentator, but like hashtag peak woke, right? Where it was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah. Sure.
any form of victimhood is just like platinum, like hot. It's
Yeah.
just like I'm oppressed, screw you.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
and
yeah.
so there was, I think, just like, and we can totally get into DEI as well. I'm excited to because there was such an earnest and valuable attempt to correct a very real problem
Yeah.
that got discursively way out of hand. And your book, I think, points up what I mean does it is such a funny and smart way those kind of philosophical failures, like where
Mhm.
things weren't thought through.
Right.
Um, yeah, and I love that. So actually, yeah, let's talk about the power of claiming the victim. So I'll read this full question here. Javier's story touches on a topic that I think a lot of liberal-minded readers of literary fiction will find fairly taboo, which is that there's a tremendous amount of political and social capital to be had in victim. And I will speak as someone who was, for a time, uh, trans and
Right.
like living as a man. I'm not doing that anymore. I have detransitioned, and
I didn't know that.
like
Okay.
yeah, no, it's fun fact about me. It makes me no less
Wait, what are
supportive of
so your
self-determination.
pronouns right now? Or I should have
She,
asked
her.
she,
No,
her.
yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
She, her.
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you. Sorry. Yeah,
No,
okay.
no worries.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I could be like,
I
maybe
know.
you
Like,
should
oh
be
shit, let me pay
fucking
you to
sorry,
yeah.
Andrew.
I'm gonna
Here's my
Zell you right
Venmo.
now. I'm
Why
gonna Zell you right now
Zell me now?
for
I'll
my
wait.
sins.
I'm like, that interview does not continue until you've hit up my Venmo.
Yeah.
But right, this has, I think, for me, afforded me like this really kind of fascinating perspective, right? Where it's like by no means am I against self-determination, to be
Sure,
clear,
sure.
right? And gosh, that's one thing that I think a lot of people assume around detransitioners. No, no, no. They're like this is all about like autonomy is a highly cherished value of mine, bodily and otherwise. But I think that when I was sort of like in my at my most trans, as it were, there was very much like culturally around me and just sort of in my interface with the cis world, this energy of like uh, Cisco, and like that was
Yeah, yeah,
coming
yeah.
from people around me, and it was,
Sure.
it was so easy for me to displace the anxieties and the fears and the what everything that had gone into needing to transition, wanting to transition, being in the social milieu I was in. It was so easy to take those fears and be like, well, who's ruining my life? It's this cis person, So when that is like, it's not that that's how do I put this? It's not that, just as we've been saying, that inequality or that lack of um like sort of like social equity, social justice isn't there. Yes, there's social inequality happening, absolutely. But it's such a flat conversation. It's such
Yeah,
a
for
just like
sure.
I'm
Yeah,
the
it's black and
victim,
white.
you're the oppressor.
Right, right, right,
Go,
right.
yeah.
No grade,
So
no nuance. Yeah.
no grade, no, yeah, exactly. And that's why your book is so helpful to bring that nuance back. Anyway, I have learned this as well. There's such immense social capital to be had in victimhood. And that, as we see with Javi, such a claim can be used to commit some insane malfeasance.
Mhm.
Um, Having written, as you have, a really sharp satire about a character who does precisely that, can you tell us a bit more about the power in claiming the victim?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon that when I first started discovering it, it was a little bit at Cornell, but power is kind of a weird word for it at that point because it wasn't really power. I just think that people thought I was like interesting or cool because I grew up poor, or they had this imagined idea of what my life was like because they kind of culturally knew about the Bronx and it was like, oh, that's a dangerous place. And you come from there and like, some people would ask me like if I had been in rap videos or like, if I've been like stabbed or whatever, stuff like that. And like and and it was kind of weird. And at first it would get me upset, but then I realized like, oh, these people really don't have any idea what my life is like, and I realized that I was kind of the same because like I'd meet people from Kentucky and I'm like, what the fuck you do in Kentucky? Like, I have no idea what your life is like in Kentucky. So so that was kind of an interesting like introduction to it. Like there's some cachet that I have on this campus because of being a lower social class or whatever than other people. And I was like, that's kind of odd. But it wasn't that strong yet. It was still like you were sort of interesting, but you weren't like exalted because of that. The rich frat boys were still the ones that were the coolest people on campus at the time, right? And then so I'm seeing that, and then you go to like 2 or 3 years later, I'm in the media world, and all of a sudden it's like in media and on Twitter, and especially at places on Twitter, like if it became this thing after the rise of claiming advocating for more diversity, like if you could make a claim to some aspect of victimhood, like it was like the time to do it, like whether if you were like if you it was easy if you were like black or you're brown or you're like gay, or you have like kind of one of the easy ones, right? But then there were other people who would reach for like, like I'm allergic to, I don't know, some random thing, and then they put like a name from like the DSM behind it. I'm like, that's a disorder, like, but like now I'm have a
Oh
mental
man.
health problem. I'm mentally, I no,
Yeah,
I have a disability. Like all these like new things started popping up,
we're
and I was
getting
like,
into Tumblr territory, Andrew.
yeah,
You
and I'm
tell
like,
me.
wait, that's a like, okay, what? Like, oh, like I don't like showing up to work. Like I have not show up to work ism, whatever. And I'm like, well, no, bro, like you just gotta fucking go to work. Like it was like, like it would just get stretched further and further and further. And that was like, what is happening here? Why are we doing this? And then the other thing that would happen that was weird was that like people would have this tragic experiences in their life, and then they just like share it online, like oh, it's like Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Let me tell you about this one time that this crazy terrible thing happened to me that has marked my life forever, and I'm just going to share it with you on Twitter for no reason, not unprompted. And then everyone is like, oh my God, Harding, and wow, I can't believe you went through that. And then it's like, and then people would kind of like make that their thing. And it was like, damn, what could
Yeah.
I share that's gonna like get attention? And it was like this game shit happening, and I'm sitting back, I'm like, this is so weird to me because I have been through things that I can put on blast online, and people would, feel bad for me or whatever. But I'm like, that's such a weird impulse. Like for me as a human, that's a weird impulse to do. Like I don't see the benefit in it. I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm doing this for likes, for attention. Like, is this helping me at all, or is this just making me stew in this thing? And then I would look at my family, family from Puerto Rico and stuff, and my family in New York, my friends, people who've been through way harder things than I have. And it's like, how do they deal with it? They don't go run into social media. Like a lot of them use humor. That's why I love humor.
Mhm.
And that's a big reason why I try to make my novel funny, is because in real life, I think people, the kinds of characters I'm writing about, like they have no choice but to try to figure out a way to get through their daily lives. And a lot of that times they're making fun of things, and like they're like poking fun and trying to make light of really bad, horrible situations and in an effort to get past it. And so there was just this disconnect of like online and the media world, like, you could go run and write a personal story and get, relatively famous, online famous for it. But like, why I didn't understand why people were doing that. And I was just fascinated by this phenomenon. And I think, and I don't know like the power behind it. The question is like, I don't know what it is. It's like an easy way for people to feel bad or like to feel like they're good people by liking your shit or, retweeting it or, it's like a passive form of change, I think maybe. And I don't know, that's something that frustrated me too, because it's like people will share a New York Times story and record a TikTok crying while reading it or, whatever, make a podcast. But like if you tell them, hey, you got to take some of those tax dollars and like put it towards these poor kids' schools, or like you got to put your kids in the school with those kids. Like, let's really shake shit up. They're like, well, let's not go that far. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, so what is this about? Like, what are we doing here? We're just like jerking each other off. What are we doing? Like, I don't understand what's happening. Uh,
'Cause when you said a passive form of change, I was like, oh, so you mean stasis?
yeah.
You mean no change?
Yeah. It's
It's
just like, yeah, we're gonna throw some likes at it. I'm like, what the fuck's that gonna
right.
like,
Well, and it makes me think of like I think you do such a great job. A really important part of Victim to Me, right, was like Javi's like he is addicted to social media. He is like
yeah, for sure.
properly addicted, right? And like to the just like endless dopaminergic like praise, 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 praise.
Yeah.
You wrote a story for the Atlantic, right? Let's say. Yeah, I'm totally not trying to like go for Ta-Nehisi Coates right now. But like you wrote a story for the Atlantic and it follows, a kind of again like a really expected set of pieties where you are conforming to the expectations that this
Yeah.
editor who is about diversity but is I think you really use like really very usefully for the structure of this book like point out he's concerned about diversity insofar as that's going to get subscriptions. He's not really actually concerned about the like social ills at the root of
Right.
why he's
Exactly.
concerned. Yeah. So what we want here is like an exchange of like, why don't you like? flagellate me and then I will make more money. And like that's what will
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, yeah. It's a business thing.
And
Yeah, it was
it's a
business.
business thing. It's a business deal. And so, but yeah, like Javi writes these, really like he's writing for a pretty prestigious kind of Atlantic equivalent
Yeah,
publication. And if I was 25 and like on the cover of, you and I are nerds, and we also graduated, I think,
yeah,
around the same time from our like liberal artsy whatever colleges. Of course, I would have been Lord, I would have been like, oh my God, it's my cover story, like my
right.
essays on the cover of the print mag. I can go to Williamsburg or whatever. Look,
Yeah,
they're reading it there. And then I can go online, 200 notifications on Twitter. I would lose my mind. And
right,
and so I think that like it's totally right. It's like it's a two-way street because it's not just the moral high ground he gets to take, right? Like I feel like this is a shortcut, immediate shortcut to the moral high ground.
hmm,
Like we've already acknowledged culturally that there is like this social inequality happening. Perfect. You feel bad. I'm great. And then once that's happening, I can also just like be completely like addicted to my devices and I'm still getting like exploited and
right,
manipulated by the
right,
powers that
right, right,
be.
right. Yeah.
And it's this whole so yeah, the kind of like addiction, the dopamine, the drug equivalent. I thought that was like so smartly done.
Thank you. Yeah, that was important to me because I do think that people get addicted to this stuff. Like you can get addicted to these notifications,
Uh,
these likes. Like we've seen examples of people throwing away their lives for this stuff, and like
yes.
it's like conforming into these like people you don't even recognize anymore because they're just like addicted to these little algorithms that like tech companies are creating to make money, and it's like, yeah, you get
Mhm.
staking, I guess, and you might, I don't know, you get a book deal or something, you get some freelance pieces or, but it's very dangerous, it's very dangerous
Yeah.
that you allow yourself to be manipulated by, and it's very tempting because they design
Yes.
it so well. They design it like a drug. It's literally designed like a drug, and it works like a drug.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and so I always wanted that tie, especially because Javi has like real drug dealers in his life. And so it's like a parallel to like, this is not really that different. What these guys are doing are really not that different, if you think about it. So,
Totally. Well, and I love that too about how, like, as Javi is getting groomed, right, by like the kind of like New York's like media elite, right?
mhm.
Gio's getting groomed by like the guys in front of the bodega who are like,
Yeah,
okay, I love that section, right, where they're telling him, oh, you won't see any kind of dangerous action. We're going to offer you this and this protection. And Javi knows immediately that he's being fed, that
right.
Gio's being fed a story, but it's the same type of dopamine, right? It's the same sort of like, well, this is my sense of purpose. This is how I'm going to get rich. And neither anticipates. It's so difficult when you're in the thick of that to anticipate the other shoe
Right.
dropping. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we could go on about, I think, addiction in particular, but like this is a theme that I have not written about, just written about, but like lived as well. And I think it's like important to talk about how your book is also very much an addiction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
appreciate that theme.
yeah,
Most people don't pull that out, but that was a very conscious thing that I was trying to explore for sure. Yeah.
it was super. Yeah, it was loud and clear, really well done. So yeah, let's talk about your stated one of your like sort of stated intentions in writing Victim, besides writing a Bronx novel and a non-polemical, like non-side taking novel. And of course, as mentioned, a novel about how our addiction to social media is killing us. You really wanted to write a novel in which urban working class characters, I think I'm quoting, I think from your Substack here,
Mhm.
urban working class characters of color actually feel real and aren't turned into tokens of noble suffering or infallibility. Needless to say, I think you do a great job. It's actually gotten me thinking about comments that have been given to me about my own con novel, which is about gay con men who are in the state of love, lust, limerence, whatever you want to call it, but it's not going well. And I would hear from folks, it's so great to see queer characters behaving badly. Their queerness isn't the whole point. Someone can be marginalized and still be conniving or unlikable. And my
Yeah.
reaction's always been, yeah, no shit. No
Yeah,
shit,
man.
yep. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and I think like I was thinking about this too, Andrew. Like I like the amount of times people I oh my God, I love so dearly in my life whom I went to college with, right? And I went to a school, I went to Carleton, it's a big price tag liberal arts. People I love them, like, deeply sweet people, upper middle class white people, a lot like most of them.
Mhm.
And just people who are really the ones I'm very, very close to just want to do the right thing, truly.
Right.
And I've heard so many times from a lot of these friends, people being like, "Oh, like yeah, like you can still be oppressed and like be an asshole or something, you know?" And there's a time right in 2010 where I've been like, "Oh yeah, total yeah," but now I hear that and I'm like, "Honey, yes, of course." Like
Right.
it's so
Yeah,
laughable,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I know, I know, I know.
And and that's what like I think Victim really gets at this. And this is why I think reading Victim will be really helpful for folks who do just really want to do good, right? Who we're not even talking about wielding power. We're just talking about like I want to do my little part to right like an obvious social wrong, and
Mhm.
who are just sort of steeped in just like self-loathing because the discourse has flattened the conversation to a point of like really, really
Yeah.
just like black, like truly just like black and white thinking, no, no nuance, no gray areas. So like, I'm so, so curious, to hear from you, like with all this in mind, right? Like how, how you feel, that like they're like the totalizing effect of identity politics and discourse around social marginalization, all this stuff we've been talking about. How did that shape your thinking on Victim? Like, how did it shape you going in and kind of constructing the story?
Yeah, from the beginning, I had a goal of writing, like I said in that quote you're reading. I don't remember where that's from, but I remember I've said that a few times, but like it's true. Like I think I wanted to write characters that felt like real to me, it felt like um people with agency, characters of color with agency was very important to me because, I read a lot in the contemporary space around identity, race, like novels about these topics. And many of them were good, and many of them I enjoyed and had interesting plots and stuff. But almost always I would come away thinking like, man, like these characters are like there was always this imbalance, this dynamic setup where it's like the character of color is like not allowed to be bad. Like they're just perfect. They never mess up. They never actually get in trouble. It's always like they're just going about their life, and then like, oh, some white person comes in and just fucks everything up because that's what happens. I'm like, okay, and in their relationships, like it was just like always like there was no friction, and it was like, I don't know anybody like that, I don't know anybody like that. Like everybody is a little messed up. Everyone has something. We're humans. Like, and so it was like really weird to me, that I would see that in fiction. And then that was coupled with like all this weird shit happening online where it's like you're a victim, you're exalted. And they'd have these stories about like I remember doing the George Floyd stuff. People were like washing people's feet and like kissing them like they were like fucking gods. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, what are you people doing? Like, like we don't need this. Just like help us fix some shit. Like help give us some opportunity. Like all this other performative stuff is so meaningless. Nobody wants that. You know what I mean? And so, it was those two things in tandem where I was like, my a big goal was like, I want to write characters of color who like do and say bad things, who are not just like towing the line. Like, I want you as a reader, whether you're white or black or whatever, or brown, like to be like, this guy's kind of an asshole. And it's okay to say that. Like, like it's fine,
Right.
and
Yeah,
it's
like you
like,
don't have to look around and be like, oh, he's an
yeah. And it's
asshole.
like, man,
Ooh.
this is literature. Like we're exploring
Yeah.
the human, fucking project here. Like the
Hmm.
masterpieces of literature have always done this. Like the best
Hmm.
characters, completely flawed people, like, Lolita is a beautiful fucking novel. And it's like completely flawed, and so like if we can afford that to that character and to that novel, like why can't we allow a character of color to do some bad fucked up shit and not and not like moralize around it, like I didn't want a novel where it was like, well, he did it because actually it's because of this, and like it wasn't his fault. And it's like, no, no, like this guy is kind of a jerk. Like, and it's all right. Like, and I think throughout his journey, you kind of hopefully you understand it, and you like can
Mhm.
even see why he did what he did, which again, those are the novels that I love. The people are messing up doing crazy stuff, but you like they're characterized in such a profound way that you almost understand it. You're like, well, he was naturally going to do that, and you almost find yourself like, but like I kind of understand why he did it, even though I don't like it, and I just
Yeah.
like that tension. And that was something I really wanted to explore. And I wanted to explore with a character who read is like, all the like, lower class, poor, like traumatic background markers that you're typically not supposed to have allowed to do that, and so that was just really important to me because I don't know. I think that to me is the marker of real diversity in literature. That like these characters are allowed to exist, and that they're interesting people, fully formed people, not just because they're of a certain race or ethnicity or gender or sexual orientation, but because they're interesting fucking people and they happen to be those things. That to me is like that's what I care about. I don't care like I want to read another fucking novel where it's like, well, it's a Latino novel, and it's like, oh, I'm just supposed to like it because they're Latino. I don't give a fuck. Like I could just talk to real Latino people in my life. Like why is this person interesting? Why is their journey interesting? What's happening? Like how are they messing up? And like that's what I want to see. So, I really focus on that.
Yeah, so many things. I love that answer because there's so many things in it I want to like react to, respond to. But first of all, I didn't see the. I was already kind of, I think, pulling back from being online during George
Yeah.
Floyd, thankfully. But I didn't see the wash it, the
Oh,
kissing
I'm
of
gonna send you
feet.
some links, bro. It was
Send me
weird.
some
It's
links.
so
That's
weird. It was some
really
weird shit happening.
intense.
I'm like, what is
Yeah.
going on?
So it's wild. But yeah, I think like, so you and I really share this value, and we also, I think, share an eye roll over like our what I have been calling identity fiction, right? And what I have been calling the this sort of like bastardization of write what you know, kind of like like we're getting to the point where it's not just about like, well, like draw from your personal experience, like mold that into the like use your imagination and bring that into just like something that approaches truth, or something that like pulls people in, makes them feel less alone. We're getting to the point where it's like, well, okay, so the novel is the thing that you sell with your Instagram
Mhm.
presence, which how many followers do you have? And so, like, people should read the novel and be able to continue seeing online, like, seeing you online, suffering the way that this loosely veiled fictional character was really suffered in the novel at the hands of like so many oppressors. Oh my God, girl, I'm so sorry for you. What's your Venmo? What's your Cash App? Like, it's just like this sense of that sometimes a novel precedes the writer, sometimes the writer precedes the novel, but either way, there's this like misery antecedent. There's this sort of victim antecedent where you're expecting to, like really read the story, buy the book, follow the person because it's been hard for them.
Mhm.
And, and I think like a lot of, again, kind of pulling back to a more peak woke era here, but like a lot of like white leftists, that kind of, theory adjacent literary space, whatever. It was like diversify your timeline, you piece of shit. Who do you follow? And it was just like,
That's
who are
crazy.
you? Who are you buying? But it was insane. It was insane.
Yeah.
And it was just people, wanting to ask questions, right? And it's like, you should know the answer, fucker. Sit down. And then people being like, well, I don't know the answer. And then, but like, but I should sit down and like, it's not my job to explain it to you. And again, going back to trans this, right? This is where,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
the last thing I'll say to your response. My book, the book I'm working on right now, is called tentatively titled Great White Male, and
yeah.
not so
Nice.
tentatively.
Okay.
No one can publish it if they don't title it
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I love it.
Thanks. But it is so like the irony, right? Like I is like I have felt like you for so long of like not wanting to write the like fucking identity novel where it's about how someone just like me suffered so richly.
Mhm.
Like this, oh, the sad nerdy gay kid, whatever, whatever.
Mhm.
But the irony is that this book actually hews the closest it ever has to my personal experience, right? And the kind of Remy Rachel Moses character, the protagonist, um, does a whole host of like really just we really just get in there with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
envy, self-loathing, and drug addiction, and it's like it's you. I want to be like, okay, yeah, I wrote what I knew.
Yeah.
I wrote what I, and in fact, just as you said before, right? It's like it's not about like how like I suffered and how there's this constant external locus of control and the world owes me. It's actually about like, yeah, how shit was hard. And I and I often behaved poorly and I learned how to behave better as I grew up.
Yeah.
And humor got me through, and the love of my friends got me through. Not like
Right.
demanding that strangers like my shit on the internet.
Right.
So yeah, that's sorry, your answer was just very thorough and great, and I had to
I
respond.
appreciate I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, that's why the novel, I don't want to spoil it, but that's why the novel takes the turn it takes. And when Javi crashes out, like that's sort of the same realizations that he comes to. It's like I'm looking external for all these things, but like really it's like I gotta look around me and like, and kind of inside. And it's like, and that was the thing that I was realizing, like looking at my timeline, I'm like, nobody's actually being helped here. We're just like, we're not helping anybody here with this stuff. Like, this is weird.
Oh, yeah. And I love too how Geo kind of arrives
Yes. Yeah,
to do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually it's Javi and Geo that I really want to talk about here with this oh well, we'll get to that in the next question, but I really want to talk about the like this book is also it's about so many things, but it's also about like the straight male perspective, which we're being told is like missing from fiction. And getting with a woman like sleeping with women, having a girlfriend, it's a huge motivator for hobby.
Yeah.
It's a huge motivator for hobby, and it's so brilliantly comically rendered. His relationship with Anais, he behaves horribly, at the
Yeah.
end, but I think it's also it's so enlightening. I really excited to get your perspective on this, and it's also like so. I think like for me, it was like really really valuable to see that, like to see money, women, yada yada, right? Like these are the motivators. These are this guy's motivators on the page, and yet, right? He's not like he's so much more than his motivations. We get to follow his entire art. We get to watch him like flame and burn out, but we're still like by then we're like I love this guy. Even though
Yeah.
he's so so yeah, I really want to talk about that more, but and I want to talk about how the friendship brings him back. But let's talk about before that. How yes, this book is really what we needed this in the moment, I think. When online witch hunting is no joke, including when readers, I think I read this in the same post that I got another quote from, but readers thought that you're a MAGA loving 4D chess rogue
Yeah.
agent
That was the
for
best, man.
publishing this.
Wow.
Who said that? Where did
I don't
that
know,
come
like
from?
Goodreads and stuff, and like Instagram. People would send me stuff on Instagram, and like like it was always this idea of like, well, if this were to fall into the wrong hands, like this book would really do some damage. And I'm like, well, first off, thank you for thinking I have that much influence, but second of all, like it was always weird. Like, what do you want me to do? You want me to go smack this book out of people's hands? Like, no, you're not supposed to read it. Like, like what is the solution here? I don't understand what this is setting up, but
I'm just imagining this like steel suitcase and you just open it. It's just like your book lying there.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. No, this is the key, guys. This is how we beat down black people. Here we go.
that Steve Bannon's like, thank you. I'll take
Yeah,
this
no,
away.
like feedback. Like, yeah, we have it.
We have the literary fiction we need. Yeah, it's so good.
Oh, man.
So on both sides of the political aisle, it feels like it's like inquiry is often mistaken for bigotry, and legitimate criticisms of highly cherished beliefs are overlooked. So like and we're getting into DEI here too, right? Where it's just like, this is a thing Trump is destroying, therefore it must be good. However, if you actually see how DEI played out in the university system, vastly ineffective,
Yeah,
did not accomplish what it set out to accomplish. Tried to address a real problem, failed, to my mind.
yeah,
And so, like, there's so many things like that. There's so many examples I could think of where it's just like your book challenges the polarization around, like, we have to love this because Trump hates it, right? Or like, and again, vice versa on the opposite side of the aisle. I really want to I really want to know sort of what your intentions in that kind of like in that realm were, right? Like, how are you wanting to sort of shake up the conversation? Because I think this book really, really does that.
yeah. Thank you. I mean, it was just I had so many questions about what was happening, and I wanted mostly to write something that didn't feel like I was telling you the answer or like giving you this is how you're supposed to think. I felt like the previous 5 years or whatever, 6, 7 years, I had been reading so much of like you're supposed to think this, and I hated that shit. Like I don't want to read something and be like, you're telling me exactly what to think, especially in fiction. I'm like, that's the last place that should be. If it was a nonfiction book, you're making an argument. Okay, that's the purpose of this text. A book of literature, fiction, like a story, you're not like in my mind, it's supposed to be an exploration, and so a big goal was just to like I had all these questions myself like okay, this is what's happening is weird, but why it's happening is kind of good because they're trying to solve this issue, but the way they're going about it is all weird. It's not actually solving the issue, but is it better than not doing anything at all? Like I don't know. Like I didn't know how to make sense of all that. And so I was like just trying to honestly explore it through these characters. But one thing that I did want to get at was that what I realized quite quickly is that it's a trend. It was a trend. Like what was happening was a trend. And I think that's become quite obvious now that, Trump is back in power and he's taken such aim at anything that whiffs of DEI. Like DEI has become such a catch-all now that it's like, if you give Medicaid to people like it's DEI, it's like, well, that's not fucking DEI, man. That's like helping people. Like, oh, school vouchers, like he can now apply a broad swath to whatever the fuck he wants. But what's been interesting to see is how quickly like institutions, thinkers, people who were like rah rah diversity DI have just like fucking dropped that shit now because it's not profitable. It's not cool. It's not like it's actually an uphill battle now if you want to fight for this stuff. And so it's really like thinned out the playing field of like who actually cares about this, And to my mind, that's been striking to see because it's like these same places that were talking all this crap game, 4 or 5 years ago, they've totally switched sides now because they want to protect their money. They want to protect their influence, their power. Like it's always about that, And so that was pretty clear to me back then. I was like, this is, there's some of this is like somewhat intentional and good-hearted, but a lot of this is like consolidating influence, power. This is what's hot. This is what's trendy. And so, it's just it's frustrating to see that because it's like I think that there's real people caught up in the middle between these wild shifts, and I just, personally, I'm highly invested in education and public education. I attended like public schools that weren't great in the Bronx, and I got opportunities, scholarships, sponsorships to go to other schools. So I've seen just like the entire strata of like what this country offers you in terms of education from the low to the high end, and I just wish we could just get on the same page about some basic shit. Like can we just like make sure everyone gets a decent education? Can we pay teachers? Can we pay them like cops? Like I'm not even against cops. I have friends who are cops. We need cops. When that whole defund shit was happening, I was like, y'all are crazy. Like my neighborhood's bad. We need fucking cops. Like you didn't grow
Mm-hmm.
up in a bad neighborhood. Like you talking this because you don't have to worry about it. Like we need them, but we also need the teachers to like let's pay them the same amount. Like they both have an equally hard job. Like so there's things that like I just wish we could collapse a little bit and like come to some broad disagreement, but we just kind of swing back and forth, and whatever's hot is hot, whatever's not, we're not gonna talk about it anymore. The next time a Democrat wins, hope we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see next time. I don't know what the hell's gonna happen, but I bet a lot of this stuff's going to come back. I'm seeing it in New York with this guy winning the mayor. Like some of so it's just like we just kind of run to the herd where wherever the fire is, we all run there, and it's like that's no way to improve things for anybody. And it's just frustrating. And I wanted to capture that in like a way that it didn't feel like I'm hitting you over the head with it. It's like I'm gonna do it through these characters who are exploring, who are living their lives, but their lives are kind of caught up in all these questions, and that gave me a way to, you know, explore it a bit.
Yeah, I love that. I think like there once again so many things to respond to here, but like the I think like what we're seeing, right? Like with yeah, exactly with like Zoran Mamdani, the kind of like the pendulum swing of like there needs to be Trump so there can be Mamdani.
Right.
And it is this kind of like endless sort of like ping-ponging echo chamber. Like you're like my win is gonna happen because of your win because I'm an ideological opponent to you.
Right.
And so yeah, this like what you're saying, right? This sort of like this herd movement, because that's what it is. And I'm the first to admit like I have moved in an ideological herd before. And it
Yeah,
was happening.
it's
Yeah, like
natural. Yeah.
totally, yeah. And it's human, and all the incentives that we've been talking about are there, right? Where it's like, well, if I move in the herd, then like I can like get paid to write this essay, or I could get like all these likes, or someone will
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kiss my feet on
Yeah. No, it's
Snapchat.
weird.
Like it's weird, it's wild. But like, I remember standing in front of a classroom. I was like still as an assistant professor. I was at this like regional little university. I was teaching um just a creative writing class, and I remember I have no idea how we got on this, but we were talking about trans athletes,
Hmm.
and I was like, well, of course, right? Like trans women should be competing in the women's categories. And there were a number of student athletes, female and male, in that class, who know not just right, like from personal experience, doing like D1 stuff, the drain of being an athlete at a university, especially if you're someone who is not coming, like that's your whole financial everything. That's the way you're
Right.
going to go to
Right.
college.
I got there.
Oh, oh yeah, it's intense. So they're gonna know way more than me what needs to be happening, right? Like physiologically to qualify for a certain sort of like weight and sex category. And women especially were like, well, I don't know. And they were kind of like gently pushing back and talking about maybe there should be like a trans team or something, something. And I
Yeah.
remember standing there and thinking like, how do I respond? Like how do I like square the circle here? And
Yeah.
it felt like they were challenging my beliefs, and I could not come up with a catechism.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with the police, where I was like, but like, what about like busting the detective who like busts a pedophile ring? Like
Right.
a sting, right? Where you're like, young girls are being trafficked. There's an example
Yeah.
of something was happening like nearby where I was living in rural Illinois.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, but like, all cops are bastards, aren't they?
Right. Right.
It was,
Right.
and that's how you kind of start to wake up to like,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
God, like, is this also doctrine? Am I also is there consent being manufactured here? Maybe
Yeah.
there is, and the only way I've been able to confront that has been with humor.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Like,
I think it's no secret why comedians have a certain cultural cachet right now in this era that we're in, because they're the last ones kind of like really, trying to be truth tellers and like make talk about even the ones who are not great. Like they're actively leaning into these conversations and talking about them in ways that maybe the best make us really think and the worst
yep,
make us cringe, but they're like going for it,
yes,
whereas that that sort of job in the past might have been ascribed to a novelist or to a screenwriter or a musician or something, but right now it's like in the comedian's hands, and so I think it's fascinating. Like these guys are blowing up, a lot of these people,
hmm
men, blowing up and commanding these great sums of money for specials, and people showing up to the comedy clubs and stuff, and I think it's no secret why.
Yeah, totally. That's, I mean, that like that. I think too, like that subversion can come back, like it can come back into the hands. Well, there's enough to go around. There's no subversion scarcity, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But like,
But I would love to see
I
more of it in literature. You know,
that's
I think that energy,
exactly.
that same energy, because like it's clear
Yeah.
audiences want to talk about this stuff. They want to,
Yes.
they're think just like us. They're like, this shit is kind of weird. I don't know what's right.
Yes.
And I want to like feel less alone, And in a
Yep.
comedy, somebody makes the joke we're all thinking about, we're all laughing. We're like, oh, these people are like me, like, and it's just like something was happening in literature, and I kind of hope it's breaking. I feel like it kind of is a little bit where
Yeah.
it's, but before that, it was like we're like blinders on. It's like, no, 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 that doesn't exist. Like nobody has those questions. But then you go to events, I talk to writers, talk to agents and stuff, and they would like whisper, like, yeah, we kind of think this is weird, and I'm like, why is it, so why are we not talking about it?
Totally.
Like, why are we all pretending like it's just, what's going on? Like,
Totally.
you
You're
know,
like, why are you pulling me aside and being like,
yeah,
don't
why are you
cancel
whispering in
me.
this?
Don't
Yeah.
cancel
It's
me
like, it was
right
always like,
now. And I'm like, I'm not gonna
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
cancel you.
There was a
What do
preamble.
you
I'm a good person. I voted for whoever the Democrat was, but
Right.
you don't have to say that. Just tell yourself,
Totally.
like,
Just
like,
telling I was especially so difficult when people would be like they would approach me almost apologizing. So
yeah,
apologizing for Trump being elected and then being like, oh, oh, I'm so sorry for for like Chris Rock. I'd be like, what the hell? That's so
yeah.
funny. His trans stuff is funny.
It's
Like
funny.
that's
Yeah, it's like,
funny. It's Chris Rock. Like I mean,
yeah.
it's just like I don't know. It was or Dave Chappelle. Sorry, not Chris. But like I'm
Dave
sure
Chappelle, right? Dave
Chris
Chappelle.
Rock
I was
made
like, wait,
a
did Chris Rock
trans
have?
joke. Dave
Yeah,
Chappelle.
but yeah,
Yeah,
but Dave Chappelle too. Yeah,
Dave
right.
Chappelle. I mean, yeah, Dave Chappelle being the one who was like really vilified for this
Yeah,
stuff, and I was like, "Have you watched it? Have you watched?
right.
Are you
Engage with
scared?
it.
You want to
Like,
sit with me, and I will
right,
hold your hand, and we'll watch Dave Chappelle make these funny fucking jokes."
right.
Like it's yeah, it's oh man. So I know exactly what you're talking about there, and I really, really, really deeply believe in the like seriously like in the needle moving power of humor. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think I love that your book is part of that. So let's last question here before we get to the like the sort of what's ahead teaser. But you the whole way I found you is because the point shared your Substack essay on the
Oh,
like
I didn't
straight.
know that. Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's thinking. I'm a huge fan of the point. Love their stuff. They're awesome. And yeah, they shared your essay. Basically, like for those of you just tuning into our little insular literary world, like viral trending topics, people are just, wondering what's going on with the straight male voice in fiction. Are men still reading novels? Yada yada. And it is actually like it is a, like I think the sort of like men drifting from the left, men drifting from fiction, right? The same
Mm.
it's sort of like the same cultural trend. It's been identified as like, peak woke alienating men. And there are a lot of things to say about that, right? But I think a really important thing to say about that, and the point you made in this really great Substack essay was like, we do like straight men want to write fiction, but we do have to not just be like, ew, gross.
Mhm.
These male characters are having a misogynistic whatever
Oh,
conversation or
yeah.
something. Like we can't like what I mean? Like we can't just be like, oh no, they like how do I put this? You put it so elegantly, but like basically there's a difference, right, between like, to borrow a pretty horrible David Foster Wallace quote, the penis with a thesaurus kind of like phallocrat, John Updike, right? The
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
the energy that is and has been kind of corrected for in the literary world, because it was brutal.
It was a lot. Yeah, because they
It
were
was a
running the game
lie.
for a while. Yeah, for
They were
sure.
running the complete, and David Foster Wallace was very much part of that, as much as he wants
Yeah,
to
yeah,
believe he
yeah.
wasn't. And there's a difference between that, right, and like well observed, sensitive, interesting, nuanced fiction that does deal with the anxieties of the straight male experience. And I think that your book falls so squarely into the latter category because you're not being like you're not saying like let me impose this like
Mhm.
straight male phallocracy over everything, and this is
Yeah,
how the
yeah,
world
yeah.
must be. Of course not. But you're writing from a perspective, hobbies, right? You're sharing a perspective, geos, that I think would be pretty maligned, right? And
Mhm.
difficult to talk about. because like they're not just like, in a Michael Chabon
Right.
or novel being like, oh, like
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed, like I must be a more forward-thinking feminist, right? And that's not how they are.
No.
And I would love for you to talk more about that because I think this is really vital and really interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was another thing that was important to me too. I just felt like I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to have real people. Like, I grew up with I have the same friends, 4 or 5 friends from high school. We hang out. We're all like quote unquote intellectuals. One's like a business guy, one's a teacher, one is like, the jeweler, the other, we all have good jobs. We like, and not only them, but other men in my life, like intellectuals. But it's like, you get us together, we don't like talk like a Michael Chabon novel or whatever you I was seeing in literature. I was like, who are these people? Like, who talks like this? Like who the fuck talks like this? I've never met anybody who talks this in real life. You know what I mean? Unless they were like on a stage and like trying to save their ass or something like that. You know what I mean? So I wanted to bring, and also I grew up in the Bronx. It's like I can't nobody talks like that where I'm from. Like we don't talk like that. Like we do 10 times worse than what I had on the page with Javi and Gio, honestly. And so I wanted to just get that like like that real male friendship on the page. What does that look like? Like they're having serious conversations with each other. They're trying to explore things in their own way. And for most straight guys who haven't, been to therapy or think therapy's dumb or like whatever, that's how they approach topics. They do it through humor and they're kind of negging each other. But like if you read between the lines, they're actually trying to share some stuff about each other and or support each other in ways. And so I wanted to get at that. And also just like, yeah, guys like they want to get laid. They want to they might think about a girl, like they see a pretty girl, they're gonna think about her and they're gonna think about sleeping with her, whatever. Like that is like a natural impulse, and I think there's a way to do it where it's, I think the penis with the thesaurus version, like you were saying, which is great, which is like this is just the natural order of things. And like, of course, the world works like this. I look at the beautiful woman, she strips naked, we go and sleep together. And it's like, oh, that doesn't fucking work. What are you talking about? But like, but at the same token, the guy's gonna have the thought and he might, like go for an approach and the girl would, shoot him down or whatever, like that. I wanted to have someone like Anais, who's like, supposedly this like hyper feminist kind of, although she's like educating Javi, like kind of like that he's like approaching him in this brash manner and like, and they find some middle ground and like there's nuances to all this stuff. And I just felt like it's important, I think, to be able to explore that. I'm all for more voices at the table. I think it's weird. Like I've been in the middle of some of these conversations about male writers, and I think it's weird that they want to just like it's some of them seem like they just want to only go back to those like days where it's like Updike Roth and and they sort of subconsciously are like all women writers like, suck right now. And I'm just like, that's a fucking stupid way to think, bro. Like there's some amazing female writers that are killing this shit. And like I'm not saying they shouldn't exist. I'm just saying like I want to write like I read that fucking the Miranda July, the All
Of
Fours, and I actually
course,
liked
yeah.
it. I actually liked it. And I remember reading that scene is it's a kind of gross scene where like the guy is like I don't know, have you read it?
I well,
Okay.
so not yet for weird reasons, but like yes,
Okay.
I love
Yeah,
her.
but
So
anyway,
yeah,
there's a
keep going.
scene that involves a tampon and it's like really
Sure.
descriptive and I was like, this is a weird, crazy scene. It's just kind of sexual. And I was like,
Yeah.
I just want it to be fine for like a guy to write the same type of scene, Like I
Hmm.
don't care. I'm happy this exists, But like
Hmm.
I read it and I was like, if I try to write that scene, this would not go over well. And I'm like, that's kind of messed up, Like, why can't
Yeah.
like we should all be able to do that, explore that.
Right.
I want to read it, you don't want to read it, but I think there's this like, I think a lot of guys are frankly scared to really like try to go even down that road,
Yeah.
because of they're just hearing messages subconsciously or real that that's not allowed. You can't do that.
Right.
If you're a straight guy, like keep your guys in check. They can't say anything out of, check with the latest glossary of what is approved and like make sure they don't stray from that. And I think that's just a weird way to write fiction. I think that's a weird way to write fiction. And so I tried to be authentic. I wasn't like doing it to stick it to anybody. I was like, I just think this is how a guy like Javi or a guy like Gio would actually think or talk about this, and I just try to be authentic to that. And so, um, but yeah, I don't know. I hope that we can move towards more of that. I think it's important for guys too, because part of the reason they don't want to read is because, and I get it, is I see guys on the page, I'm like, that's not a real guy. Like that's.
Yeah,
I think that's not how you think. And I get women's frustration because we did that shit all the time to them. Like we would
yeah.
I read these old novels and the women just they're all just fucking falling over stripping for no reason. I'm like, why are her titties out? Why is this happening? Like what this
It's
doesn't
like, I
make
mean,
sense. Like
it's seriously like
I
I
get
could
the
trace,
frustration. I get the other direction
yeah,
too. It's like we had to deal with this for so long. You should be uncomfortable too. I was like,
yeah.
I get it. So
But seriously though, like I could trace the moment, like this like really brutal kind of loss of innocence moment where I was like, "Ah, I don't feel like finishing the last Harry Potter book. What's this Portnoy's complaint?
yeah.
Life through it. Oh God, it's like and but really like it's it's that overcorrection again, right? And I think it's never solved with authoritarianism. Like absolutely,
No.
we have such a problem with the Millers and the Roths and all these guys where it was just like it's just like Pablo Neruda being like, and here's my rape poem. Like, come on, like it's awful. But I think too, right? Like this there's such a danger in the authoritarian. Well, there's danger in authoritarianism, shocker. But there's the overcorrection became so authoritarian, and you know, I'm like, no, no, no. I really want discourse around this, and I want intelligent discourse, and I want like people who actually care to like unpack this stuff, and not in a self-flagellating way. Do it with humor. Do it with like genuine inquiry. But if we don't talk about this, what are we suppressing? Like, what are the like kind of like insidious cultural forces we're suppressing? Epstein, all this Epstein stuff is back in the news. It makes me think, right, of like throttling discourse is what brings about the monstrousness of like or rather not brings about but kind of like permits no debate, no discussion
Mhm.
atmosphere that allows this monstrousness to like leak up and just kind of like take form. So you have I mean I think there's like zero conversation about like porn addiction, like
Right. Sure.
like porn rot. Like I'm so addicted
Yeah,
to
yeah,
porn. Like
yeah.
I've known many men who've been in this position where and it's just like the shame is like brutal.
Sure.
It's so intense. And and it's just like I was like I would read the hell out of the porn addict novel. I would read the hell out of the like sissy porn addict novel. It like this stuff is like I've heard men describe it like heroin. It's like really hard.
Yeah.
And it's I mean like being in recovery circles, like people are unfiltered about like
Yeah, yeah,
how
yeah. Yeah.
difficult. Yeah. And so like
It warps your
I
mind for sure.
it works for yeah, and it's just kind of like these are the discussions that interest me so much more than like shut up, dude, and
Right.
don't talk about how you would like to sleep with a woman. Like
But and
and then like
it makes people more human too. Like
yes,
what I wanted to do in the novel was like early on set up like these guys watch porn together. They're listening
they
to music.
yep,
They're listening to hip hop music, which is what I grew up on. That's like, oh, fuck bitches and do this. Like, like
right,
this is the messages we're getting in our mind over and over and over. So it's like these comments, these thoughts don't come from nowhere. Like
right,
that is, and it's important to show that origin because I think
yes,
there is an authoritarianism bent where it's just like, well, you're just an asshole man, and like men don't, and it's like, well, it's important to explore like the psyche too, and if you do it in
yes,
a smart way, in a way that's generous, that's
yes,
like trying to just write it in a way where it's like it's supposed to be like this because I'm a man and I said so, but more like why am I
right.
like this? What
Yes, yes,
like that's a different posture, and I think I want more guys to do that, and I want
yeah,
the gray world to be more accepting of that if they receive it.
yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's like frankly I was so happy that like Javi had Geo. Gio has Hoppy. Like I'm so that is the friendship there and the honesty and the transparency of that friendship is what saves Hoppy at the
Yeah,
end.
that's what saves it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that yeah, to my mind is it's so realistic, right? Like again, I could go off on a whole tangent here, but like, being I've been a lot of different ways. I've been like pretty hyper feminine, I've been less and more tomboyish, I've been trans, I've been this and that. I have always had a lot of close straight male friends, right? And at times, like, it's been like, what's wrong with it was that makes no sense, right?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like
yeah,
I love so many men, so many straight men, and I've had a lot of them like because I've also like had my periods where I've been like, no debate, I'm mad, I'm wounded,
yeah.
fuck you, stuff. But as I grew up and the amount of like conversations that I was able to start just by being like, listen, I'm sorry for that. I
Mhm.
really do. Like, I really am interested in like talking with you about this. And then, male friends telling me like, I feel like deeply damaged by the expectation to be successful. It's like shattering my life. I feel deeply damaged by porn. It's
Mhm.
really like robbing my life. I feel deeply damaged by drugs. Like all this stuff where they were like, oh, how dare I admit to this woundedness because I'm a piece of garbage. And that there can be no discursive starting point where one party is like, well, I'm a piece of garbage. That is the self-flagellation place. That doesn't make sense. And that is where we have gotten to with like broadly culturally with how polarized things are. So yeah, it's good that things are being shaken up. I'll just say that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. I'm hopeful. I really do think that we're moving into a more interesting period right now in terms of what's coming out next. So, and I think Substack places like, there's ways to create your audiences now, and there's a lot of interesting things happening.
I think so too. And then actually that is the perfect place I want to end on here because I know you have another project in the works.
Yeah.
You can tease it, you don't have to, because I know that we are different in that way. I am less secretive. You are more, most writers are like,
Yeah.
let's keep it close to the chest. So no worries if you want to chat about that. That's totally fine. If you do, awesome. I do know though, and I think it's probably okay to share because I read this or you had written this somewhere, but you are working on adapting
Yes.
Victim too for the screen. So that's really cool. Anything you want to share about future stuff, that,
Yeah.
this, that, or the other, would love to hear it as we
Yeah, yeah,
go
yeah.
out.
Yeah, the adaptation is really interesting. I actually have to write some pages today because I'm meeting with the screenwriter I'm working with and we outlined it together and now we're just gonna like go back and forth doing pages and then start trading them and shaping this thing up. I never sold the rights to the novel, but I pitched it widely, or my agents did, and we got a lot of feedback that was like, oh, we love the book, but we're not sure who would write this or how it would go or whatever. And so the message that we kept getting back was like he should write it, and then maybe at that point once we see it, we could like do something with it. So I took some time and I was working on the other draft of my new novel first because I was like, well, that's more of a sure thing. We're not sure, but like I could see that happening more so than a movie. I feel like a movie is just fucking crapshoot, who knows. Um, so now I'm in the position where I'm kind of doing both tandem. So I'm working on the screenplay, which has been interesting to like go back and look at the book and in a different way of like what can I take out, what can I heighten. We're really like throwing things against the wall and like changing things up for the purpose of making it a more engaging film.
Mhm.
Which is actually taught me a lot about plot and taught me a lot about like not being too sacred with your work and like, hey, if you play this part up that you already wrote, you think is pretty good, but you play it or spin it a different way or add this new scenario, it actually makes the whole book a little bit better. Like it's worth it to do that, even though you really like how you kind of already have it. So there's a lot of that in screenwriting, which is interesting. And it's teaching me a lot. And in terms of the new book, it's still pretty early on. I finished a draft. I'm revising it by hand. But I will say one of the best things about writing Victim is like I had all these questions and thoughts about identity, diversity, social media, male friendships, all these themes that are in the novel. And it got like, and I'm interested to hear your perspective. You've written books before as well. Like what's nice about it is like I put it all in there, and like now I'm kind of like don't have to think about it as much anymore. That's I
Yeah.
captured them all there. Um, and so the new thing that's kind of obsessing me or that I'm thinking a lot about is parenthood, fatherhood,
Mhm.
masculinity. So it's a novel I'm working on right now around those themes that I'm trying to also make similar to Victim, like something that I'm not hitting you over the head with, that I'm exploring questions that I'm having right now about these topics, and hopefully packaged in like an engaging premise that kind of gets you turning the pages, having fun, laughing, but also like thinking about some of the deeper questions there. So that's kind of like my model. Like I have these things I'm like thinking a lot about, and then characters start emerging from these things, and then I'm like, well, what happens if I set them in motion? And so it's interesting embarking on that again. I hope it doesn't take 10 years, but we'll see.
All sounds awesome. Also, really glad that you guys outlined before
Yeah,
diving
yeah,
in.
for
We
sure.
have
I
to,
film, I
yeah,
feel like
I'm
you have
in,
to. At fiction, I don't outline it. I don't really do much. Like
no,
I have like a page of random notes that make no sense. But for
yeah,
screenplay, it's like
screenwriting, you
yeah,
must.
you gotta outline
Yeah,
that. You
yeah,
can't.
it's so, no, you
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
cannot forget that.
yeah, yeah,
It's so much labor, but yeah, so I really hope that makes it to, yeah, smaller, big screen, but either way, so cool that you're
yeah.
adapting it. Excited for the next project. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on and discussing this.
Thank you.
Everybody read this, buy this, read this. Great book. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next.
Thank you very much. You asked amazing questions, and I really had a fun time in this discussion. So thank you.
Thanks.